Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience today and for taking the time to join us. My name is Carly Norahara, and I am an Education Programs Assistant in the Applied Data Research and Evaluation Office in the Early Education Division at the California Department of Education. I am joined today by my colleague, Josephine Chan, and we are happy to share with you all about the data reporting dual language learners in the California State Preschool programs. Thank you for joining us in part 2 of 3 of our dual language learner support webinar series. We also have a lot of great staff with us here today to help answer your questions and provide behind the scenes support. So I would like to give a big shout out to our team, our moderator, Patricia, as well as Valentina, Corey, Virginia, Shanna, Yashima, Amira, Mai, Anna, Sandra, Crystal, Linda, Stephen, and John. We appreciate you and you are all awesome. We also want to thank our wonderful American Sign Language interpreters, Cheryl and Jordan, for being with us today. Next slide, please. So the agenda for today's webinar is available on this slide, where we hope to address the following topics. Josie will review the preschool language information system data reporting instructions and reporting schedule, along with providing information on the new PLIS report data fields. I will then provide a review of common errors contractors have been receiving when submitting their PLIS report thus far, and then address some of the frequently asked questions related to PLIS that we have been receiving. I'll then share some valuable PLIS resources with you all. And then we're also hoping to have ample time to answer many of your questions as well. The Q&A is currently open, so please feel free to ask anything related to the PLIS or PLIS report there. We will be monitoring it as we go, and we're planning on spending some time at the end of our presentation to answer questions live. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as mandated in Education Code 8241.5, contractors are required to report data on dual language learners enrolled in a California State preschool program, along with family, classroom, and teacher information. Contractors are required to report data about dual language learners and the preschool program, including the child's home language, the language the child uses most often, and the family's preferred language in which to receive communication, which are required fields for children designated as dual language learners. The child's race or ethnicity, language characteristics of the preschool program, and the language composition of the program staff. The California Department of Education has created the Preschool Language Information System, or PLIS, which is an information system that has been created to collect the PLIS report, which contains all of the required data collection components outlined in Management Bulletin 2303. The link is included in the Management Bulletin 2303 for the PLIS. To log into the portal, contractors will enter their same credentials used for the Child Development Management Information System, or CDMIS. The Preschool Language Information System, data reporting instructions, which were formerly Attachment C, and the Preschool Language Information System reporting schedule, formerly Attachment D, can now be found on the PLIS landing page, which can be found in Management Bulletin 2303. These documents were also sent via email ahead of posting, and please keep an eye out for emails from the CDE and the PLIS email address for any additional information that may be shared out. Contractors can also expect to receive reminders for data collection and reporting. We want to thank you for your feedback on PLIS and adaptability during these revisions to guidance, as well as your work in identifying, reporting, and supporting dual language learners in CSPP. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Josephine Chan, for an overview on the PLIS report.
Thanks, Carly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Josie Chan, and I'll be taking us through a brief overview of the Preschool Language Information System, also known as the PLIS, data reporting instructions for PLIS reports, the data reporting schedule, and information on new and updated PLIS data fields. So the PLIS was created to collect the PLIS report, which will contain all of the required data collection components outlined in Management Bulletin 2303. The PLIS report will be due quarterly. So it will need to be submitted once every 3 months during a 20-day submission period. The first official PLIS report submission period opened on April 1st, 2023, and remained open through April 28th, 2023. The first submission period was for data on children enrolled from January 1st through March 31st, so this would be all children enrolled for at least 1 day of services during January, February, and/or March 2023. Please make sure that you're reporting all children that were enrolled for at least 1 day of services during this period. This includes both children newly enrolled during the quarter and children that were continuing to be enrolled throughout the quarter. The technical assistance support team for the CDMIS will also manage the PLIS, and we've also created a new technical assistance inbox that has been created for support in using the PLIS system and can be reached for any questions pertaining to the PLIS by emailing plisplis@cde.ce.gov. Again, the first official PLIS report submission period opened on April 1st, 2023, and remained open through April 28th, 2023. Please note that we extended the Q3 due date from April 20th to April 28th, but all other reports will be due within the regular 20-day submission period unless otherwise stated. And we'll go through the whole reporting schedule for the rest of fiscal year 2022 to 2023, a few slides down. Okay, and before reviewing the reporting schedule for fiscal year 2022 to 2023, we'll go over the two methods of submitting the PLIS report within the PLIS system. So like the CDMIS and the 801A report, there is both a manual input function and an electronic file input function in the PLIS. To use the manual input method, you'll be manually adding each child record one at a time. So upon logging into the PLIS, you'll see an Add Child button that you will click on. Once you click on this and the screen populates, the PLIS report screen will show 3 sections: Child, Family, and Classroom and Facility. After all required information has been input for all 3 sections, clicking Add Child Record at the bottom right will save that child's information. If there are any errors in the information you input, they will populate before being able to be saved, and the error message will appear in red next to the data field. If you'd like to use the electronic file input option, you'll click Upload Child Records on the top right. From here, you can download the current and previous reporting records, which you can also download via the Download Records options on the top right of the screen. This functions as the copy forward function in PLIS and will allow you to download a tab delimited record and re-upload it to the PLIS for the current reporting period. After uploading, if there are any errors within the file, the errors will appear on the screen with the row number in the file and the child's first and last name to indicate which specific record contains these errors. When uploading a successful file, a confirmation message will populate and all information will then be available in the manual input format. If needed, you can then make edits to each child manually by clicking the Edit button on the right of each child record. Please note that the upload function will replace any existing data in the system. If you'd like to use a combination of manual and electronic file input, please make sure you upload the electronic file first before manually inputting records. In addition, at the start of each new quarter, existing and/or previous quarter's data will be cleared from the dashboard. However, it is available to download as an electronic file for you to re-upload for the new quarter. We'll now move on to reviewing the PLIS reporting schedule. When discussing the PLIS report, the reporting period refers to the period of time the data is being reported on. The submission period refers to the time frame you are able to submit the PLIS report. For fiscal year 2022 to 2023, Q2 was optional. This optional reporting period was for all children enrolled in your program from December 1st through December 31st, 2023. The optional reporting period opened on January 1st and closed on March 31st, 2023. Quarter 3, the first official reporting period and submission period, had a reporting period of January 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2023. The submission period to submit the PLIS report for quarter 3 was from April 1st through April 28th, 2023. Please note that for quarter 3, we extended the due date from April 20th to April 28th. All other reports will be due within the regular 20-day submission period unless otherwise stated. Please make sure you're reporting all children that were enrolled for at least one day during the period of January 1st through March 31st, 2023. This includes both children newly enrolled during the quarter, full day and part day children, and children that are continuing to be enrolled throughout the quarter. In addition to the submission period for the quarter 3 PLIS report, we also want to notify contractors that the quarter 3 report will be locked for all edits at 11:59 p.m. on June 30th, 2023. Moving forward, again, all submissions will follow the same pattern of being due on the 20th of the month, unless the due date of the 20th falls on a weekend or a holiday, in which the report will be due on the nearest business day following the 20th. So quarter 4, which is the next reporting period. Oops, sorry, could we go back one more slide? Yeah, thank you. So quarter 4, which is the next reporting period, will have a reporting period from April 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2023, and have a submission period from July 1st to July 20th, 2023. Contractors will have 20 days to submit their report on children enrolled for at least one day of services between April 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2023. And quarter 4 will lock at 11:59 p.m. on September 30th, 2023. Next slide, please. Thank you. So important dates for the quarter 3 PLIS report. In addition to the reporting schedule, please make sure you also take note of these important dates regarding the quarter 3 PLIS report for all children enrolled for at least one day of services between January 1st to March 31st, 2023. The first important date was April 1st. So even though this has passed, this was the first day of the quarter 3 submission period. So this was the first day that contractors were able to report children for quarter 3. April 28th was the extended due date for submitting the quarter 3 PLIS report, and this was the last day that you could submit reports for the April 28th without being late. Now, May 2nd and the week of May 15th, June 1st and June 15th are the days and time periods in which the PLIS support team will send out late notification emails to agencies that have not submitted any data for the quarter 3 PLIS report. These emails are sent to executive directors, program directors, and active PLIS users. If you do not receive this email, your agency should be in compliance for having submitted data for the quarter 3 PLIS report. If you do receive this email and believe your agency has already submitted the report, please feel free to reach out to the PLIS inbox and we can confirm your report status. We have also seen some users that have accounts with multiple agencies. If you receive this email, this may mean you might not have submitted a report for one or more of the agencies that you report for. Again, late notifications will be sent out later this week, so we ask that you please monitor your inbox closely to avoid being out of compliance. Now, June 1st and June 15th are also the dates that we will be curating and submitting the withholding of apportionments list for quarter 3. If you have still not reported any data by June 1st, your agency will be placed on the withhold list until the report is received. Please note that June 30th is the last day you are able to submit or revise your quarter 3 PLIS report. Please ensure your entire report is fully accurate by this date, as the system will lock for quarter 3 at 11:59 p.m. on June 30th, and you will no longer be able to make edits to your Q3 data. Next slide, please. Thank you. New PLIS report fields teacher designation. So now that we've covered the 2 reporting methods and important dates, we'll now move on to new and updated data fields in the PLIS. The first new field is the teacher designation field, DLL teacher designated. This field indicates that the child's teacher was the one who designated the child as a dual language learner. Please note that this field is only for children who are indicated as dual language learners. This means that this field will only show up in the manual input option if the child is a DLL field is marked as yes. If the child is a DLL field is marked as no, it will not show up in the manual input option. If the child is a DLL field is marked as no, please leave this field blank in the electronic file. And a reminder that teacher designation can only occur if the parent designated English only in the answers to the family language instrument. But after 30 calendar days through child observations, the child demonstrates that they speak, respond to, or understand a language other than English, and the teacher has met with the parent or guardian, but the parent or guardian refuses to update their answers to the family language instrument. Then the DLL teacher designated field would be marked as yes. For more information on rules for teacher designation of DLLs, please refer to the teacher designation FAQs posted on the PLIS landing page. Again, if a child is designated as a DLL, the possible options for the DLL teacher designated field are yes, which means the teacher designated this child as a DLL, or no, which means that the teacher did not designate this child as a DLL, or the child was designated as a DLL based on responses in the family language instrument. Please note, the date of instrument does not change with the teacher designation. The date of instrument is the initial date the instrument was conducted, which is no later than upon enrollment. Next slide, please. Thank you. So moving on to new PLIS report fields. The next one is the site address information field. So the site address information field is a new field that is required only if a site does not have a license number or a LEA CDS code. The site address information is the address of the site at which the child being reported on is enrolled in and receiving subsidized childcare services at. It should also be the address of the site in the site name field. The site address field has 5 subfields. The first one is address 1. This will be the main street address where the site is located, and this address must be the physical street address where the child receives services. The second subfield is address 2. This is an optional field and is the unit, apartment, suite, or space number of the main address if needed. Again, this address 2 subfield is optional. Next slide, please. Thank you. And the third subfield in the site address information section is the zip code field. This is the zip code where the site is located. This must contain 9 digits, the primary 5-digit zip code, and the 4-digit extension. So for example, this would look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 digits in total. The fourth subfield is the city field, which is the city in which the site is located. And the last subfield is the state field, which is the state in which the site is located. Please make sure you abbreviate this with the state's 2-letter abbreviation. For example, California would be abbreviated with the letters capital C and capital A. Okay, and moving on to fields that already existed in the PLIS but have been modified. The head of household field has now been updated to be split into 3 fields. Instead of combining the head of household's full name into 1 field, the head of household name will be split into the following 3 fields. The first one will be the head of household last name. This will be the last name of the head of household. So this will have a requirement of 1 to 100 characters, and no numbers or special characters will be allowed to be input into the field. The next one is the head of household first name. Again, this has restrictions on inputs. This will be 1 to 100 characters, and again, no numbers or special characters allowed. The last head of household field is the head of household middle initial field. This is an optional field and allows for a maximum of 1 character. If this field is left blank, it must have a tab delimiter for electronic files in this section. This concludes our review of the new and updated data fields in the PLIS, and I'll now pass it on to Carly to review some common PLIS reporting errors.
Thank you, Josie. Hello, everyone. I am back and will now be discussing some of the common reporting errors contractors have been sharing with us in their electronic file uploads. So the first common error that we have been receiving occurs in fields in which multiple codes are allowed. These fields include the following. So for the race field, the home languages field, the languages used by the lead teacher, the languages the lead teacher is proficient in, languages used by other classroom staff, and the languages other classroom staff is proficient in. So these fields can all accept more than 1 code. However, they must be submitted without any errant characters included. This includes quotation marks surrounding the values or spacing between codes. An incorrect example of multiple codes for language would be a quotation mark, the language code 00, comma, a space, the language code 01, end quotation. This is incorrect for 2 reasons. There should be no quotation marks surrounding the codes, and there should be no space between the first and second value. A correct example of multiple codes would be 00, 01, or 200, 700, without any spacing or quotations. This is the way your electronic file must be formatted if you are submitting multiple codes in one field. Next slide, please. So the next common error is regarding the site zip code field. Please keep in mind that this field is optional if you have submitted either a facility license number or a CDS code. However, if you are submitting site address information, you must have all of the following for your data to be accepted: the site address 1, the site city, the site state, and the site zip code. If you are leaving site address 2 blank, there still must be a tab delimiter between fields to indicate a placeholder for where that information could go. When submitting a site zip code, you must submit it as a 9-digit code, like Josie had said, with a 5-digit zip code and 4-digit extension. You must also submit this without a dash in your zip code. If you submit it as just 5 digits or with a dash in between, you will receive an error. So in the incorrect example, 95814 would receive an error because it does not have 9 digits. 95814-5901 would receive an error because there is a dash in between. The correct way to submit this would be as 95814-5901. It has all of the correct digits and it does not include a dash. We have also received questions surrounding the teacher designation of dual language learner status data field. As a reminder, the teacher designation should only be used if there is ever an instance where you conducted a family language instrument, attachment A, for a child, and the family said the child only speaks or understands English. However, in the classroom, their teacher observes the child proficient in another language. If you follow up with the family and ask if the child is familiar with another language, and the family says no, and insists the child only speaks or understands English, if this is the case, the child would have the following responses. The DLL status is yes, and the is teacher designated status, it is teacher designated would be yes. It would be used if the child's teacher and the child's family are not in agreement on whether the child is a dual language learner, because the teacher believes them to be a dual language learner. If you conducted attachment A with the family and the family reports the child is proficient in a language other than English, the child would have the following responses. Dual language learner status is yes. Is teacher designated is no. If the child is not a dual language learner, the teacher designation field must be blank. So this means that the DLL status is no, and there is no response in the teacher designated field. I hope this makes sense, but feel free to ask questions in the Q&A if you would like some further clarification. And so correct examples include DLL status is yes, teacher designation is no. DLL status is yes, teacher designation is yes, or DLL status is no, teacher designation must be blank. So the last common reporting error surrounds all date fields in the PLIS report, which includes the date of birth, the date of enrollment, and the date of instrument. This must be submitted in month / day / year format, including leading zeros if applicable. This also means that this must include the full year. An incorrect example would be 1/1/2020 or 22. This should be 01/01/2022. 11/20/19 should be 11/20/2019, or 10/2/18 should be 10/02/2018. So we've been monitoring the PLIS email inbox for several months now and have compiled some of the most frequently asked questions related to the PLIS and the PLIS report to share some of the answers that we have. The first question is, who should be reported in the PLIS report? And the answer to this is that all children, both part day and full day, and both children designated as dual language learners or non-dual language learners should be reported in the PLIS report. To clarify this should be all CSPP certified children. Please report on all children that were enrolled for at least one day during the reporting period of January 1st through March 31st. This must include newly enrolled children during the quarter and children that are continuing to be enrolled through the quarter. The second question is, what is the difference between the Family Identification Case Number, the FICN, and the Child Identification Case Number, or CICN? The answer to this is that the FICN is retained at the family level. Siblings of the same family must have the same FICN. The FICN must be the same FICN used in the 801A report. The CICN is retained at the child level. Each child within your agency must have a different CICN, even siblings. The CICN is unique to the PLIS report. I also want to remind everyone that if your agency does not maintain a child unique number, this is totally okay. The PLIS is programmed to automatically generate this number by using a combination of FICN, the child date of birth, the child's first name, and the child's middle initial. These are all fields that should be consistent from month to month, and if they are, the CICN will remain the same as well. The importance of this field is to ensure that the child retains the same number from month to month. The third question is, how should I report a child who receives services in multiple sites or classrooms during the quarter? We receive this question frequently and want to share that the answer is to please report the classroom in which the child spent the majority of the quarter enrolled. For example, if a child was enrolled in Site A from January 1st through February 20th, and enrolled in Site B from February 21st through March 31st, please report Site A in your Quarter 3 PLIS report. Another example would be a child that attends Classroom C from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Classroom D on Tuesdays and Thursdays. In this case, please report Classroom C information in the PLIS report. So the fourth frequently asked question is, in the classroom facility section, who is considered other program staff? And the answer to this question is to report any other program staff referring to adults who are hired to work in the classroom and work with the children daily or almost daily for a substantial portion of the day. This does not apply to parents, volunteers, therapists, or others who may interact with children for short or irregular periods of the day. So FAQ 5, what happens if an agency does not submit the PLIS report by the due date? So the answer for this is currently, if an agency has an outstanding PLIS report, the PLIS support team will send an email to agency executive and program directors notifying them of the outstanding report. The PLIS support team will work with the agency to ensure the report is successfully submitted. The CDE will integrate PLIS reporting requirements into established payment withhold procedures, similar to the payment withhold procedures for non-submission of the 801A report. The last FAQ we want to share is, what should I do if a child is found to be a dual language learner, but disenrolls before attachment B, the family language interest interview, is implemented? The answer for this is to please still report this child in the PLIS report for the pertinent quarter. If responses derived from attachment B are unavailable, including home languages, most used language, written and verbal communication preference, please submit the language code 00 for unknown. So before we get to the Q&A session, I just wanted to quickly remind you of some key takeaways from our presentation. So first, if you have not already submitted your Q3 PLIS report, please do so as soon as possible. Even though there was a due date, we will accept reports until June 30th. The submission period for Q3 will close on June 30th, and Q4 will open for submission on July 1st. Second, if you need to make any updates or edits to your data based on what we've shared during our presentation or errors you've made previously, such as correcting FICN information to match the 801A or teacher designation status, please log into the PLIS and update your report as soon as you are able to. These updates will need to be made no later than June 30th. Lastly, if you previously reported only children designated as dual language learners, please revise your report by adding all other CSPP children to your Q3 PLIS report. You should be reporting the same CSPP children in your PLIS report as you do on your CDD 801A report. This means if you had 50 children enrolled during January through March and reported 50 children in your 801A report, you must also report 50 children in your PLIS report. So I will now turn it over to our moderator, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Carly and Josie, for the presentation so far. And with that, we are ready to begin answering some of the questions live that we've been receiving in the Q&A. So let me first go to, I believe, Carly, I will call on you first for a question that you might have already answered in the Q&A. But it states, if we uploaded a child record in the previous reporting period, do we need to report the child again in the next reporting period?
So yes, every quarter, you'll need to submit your report again. And there is a way to download your previous quarter's report to re-upload it for the current quarter. However, I do want to make note that from Q2 to Q3, we did add and modify some data fields. So your electronic file from Q3 won't match your your electronic file from Q2 will not match Q3. So you might need to take a look at your data again and either generate a new report for Q3 or manually input all your children in for Q3.
Thank you, Carly. And I saw this question come up a few times regarding today's presentation and the recording. So just wanted to quickly share that the CDE is in the process of creating a dual language learner support webpage. This page will include slides and recordings from webinars in this webinar series, and the CDE will email that link out to our EED email distribution list when it is available. Okay, let me see. Here we have another question. What if you haven't done the one that was extended to April 28th? Do we still have time to enter for that quarter?
Yes. You have until June 30th to finalize all of your data for the Q3 report, which was due on April 28th. However, we are planning on sending the withholding of apportionments list to our fiscal staff on June 1st. So if you have no data for Q3 as of June 1st, you will be placed on the withhold list, but we encourage contractors to report and really finalize their data for accuracy, and it will close on June 30th.
Thank you, Carly. And just a reminder, please share out more of your questions so we can answer them here live. But we also know that your questions, if they're specific or you would like to include screenshots, your questions can also be directed to plis@cde.ca.gov. So let me see the next question that we can go ahead and answer live. See, scrolling. See which one we can answer live. See here. Okay, here we have a question. If a family has siblings, for example, twins, does each child need to be inputted separately, or can you put them in as a family? Not sure if Carly or Josie, if you want to take that question.
Yep, so siblings need to be inputted separately. There is no way to input like children from the same family in one file. Each child will need to be inputted in a separate file.
Thank you, Carly. So just scrolling to see. Here's another question. Are the responses to the family language and interest interview to be reported? Not sure, Carly or Josie. Okay, Carly.
Thanks, Patricia. So they don't need to be reported, but you will need your family language and interest interview response. There's 4 questions from the interview that have a direct response on the PLIS report. So that's the home languages question is derived directly from the interview. The most used language, the family written communication preference, and the family verbal communication preference are all responses that will need to be reported in the PLIS report. But there are some questions in the interview that do not need to be reported.
Okay, thank you, Carly. Next question is, where do I check to make sure my PLIS report for Q3 passed? I'm not sure, I think Josie's taking that question.
Yeah, I can take that. Thanks, Patricia. So in order to check if your Q3 report has passed, you can log in. And if you've been using manual input, as you input each child, if it saves correctly and you see it show up on a screen as a child record, that means you've submitted successfully. If you're doing it electronically and you upload it, you will receive a screen that gives you confirmation that you've successfully uploaded your report. But the easiest way, if you're not sure, no matter which method you've been using, is just to log into the PLIS website and check that all the child records that show up as soon as you log in match to the children that you should be reporting for that quarter. And again, if you're not sure, you can always reach out to the PLIS inbox that's shown on the screen at plis@cde.ca.gov.
Thank you, Josie. And I think the next question is for you as well. Can you repeat what you were saying about the number of children reported in PLIS needs to match the number reported? Is it the 801A or, and then question mark?
Yes, so the PLIS should be for all CSPP children. So the number of children that you report in the PLIS should be the same number as the number of CSPP children you are reporting in the 801A. So this is what we'll also be using to make sure that you're reporting all the children that you are providing services to.
Thank you, Josie. And I believe, Carly, you wanted to share a clarifier?
Yes, so if you don't have responses from the family language and interest interview by the time that the PLIS report needs to be due, please submit the language code UU for unknown. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe this next one is for Josie. How can we tell if we are using the correct PLIS template?
Yeah, so the easiest way to tell if you're using the correct PLIS template is again to log into the site. If you click on the upload child records option and you scroll down, there'll be some templates there. You can download those and make sure that those are the same as the ones that you're using.
Thank you. And I think this next one's also yours, Josie. Do we remove students that have dropped in a previous quarter or leave them on the report for the next quarter?
Yes, so PLIS reports should be for all children who are currently enrolled for at least one day of services during that period. So if you have a child that was enrolled for quarter 2 and they dropped during that period and are no longer enrolled for not even one day in quarter 3, then you'll remove them from that report in quarter 3.
Thank you. And then I think this next one is for Carly. Will the program be responsible for cross-checking that the number of children in PLIS matches the number reported in CDMIS, or will CDE follow up with the program if the numbers do not match?
Thanks, Patricia. So while we hope that you all have like an awareness of the numbers that you're reporting on both reports, I think we also know that there are some agencies where it's not the same person submitting the 801A that is going to be submitting the PLIS report. So we're hoping to spend some time in June cross-checking for agencies that have numbers that are being reported in the 801A that don't match what they've submitted in the PLIS report, and hoping that we'll be able to follow up with you all. Again, the report period will be open until June 30th. So we're hoping to give you ample time to update your reports.
Thank you, Carly. And I believe this next one is for you as well. If they are English only, do they have to complete the interview?
So if from the family language instrument, the child is designated as not a dual language learner, you do not need to complete the interview, but it is optional.
Thank you, Josie. This next one is for you. Is it true that teacher designation field must be blank if the student is not considered dual language? Will we get errors if teacher designation is N and dual language learner is N?
Yes, so this is true if the student is not designated as a dual language learner and you're using the electronic file upload option. So that means you're creating a tab delimited text file and uploading that. You need to put N in the child is a dual language learner field and then keep the teacher designation field blank. If you put anything in that, you'll get an error. And if you're doing this manually, if you indicate that the child is not a dual language learner, that teacher designation field will not even show up. So that won't be an issue. So yes, if you're doing it electronically, keep it blank. If you're doing it manually, you won't even see that field.
Thank you. And I believe this one's also yours, Josie. Please repeat, since there are new / updated fields, can we download quarter 3 to upload for quarter 4?
Yes, so all new and updated fields are just new and updated since the optional quarter 2 reporting period. So everything in quarter 3 is updated. It's already in there. Nothing has changed since then. So for quarter 4, You can download Q3. Just make sure that any changes in enrollment, children have dropped, new children have enrolled are reflected in that, and then just upload it as is.
Thank you. This next question is for Carly. Is there a summary or quick list of all the updates between Q3 and Q4?
I think that Josie kind of just also touched on this. So as of right now, we don't believe we're changing anything from Q3 to Q4. All of the changes that we discussed earlier were changes from Q2 to Q3. But if you would like a summary or a list of that information of data fields that have been changed from Q2 to Q3, please email the PLIS inbox. It's plis@cde.ca.gov. I believe Amir also put it in the chat, and we'll be happy to provide that resource to you as well.
Thank you. Believe this one's also yours, Carly. If we submitted our quarterly that was due on April 20th, 2023, my question is that we need to update that report that was submitted in April 2023 since new information was added.
Thank you, Isabel, for submitting your report on time. Super appreciated. Nothing's changed if you've submitted your Q3 as of April 1st. So there's nothing that you need to do unless you want to just double check that all of your data is accurate. But there shouldn't be any additional changes that have been made from when the report initially opened on April 1st. So if you can confirm that all of your data is fully accurate, then no further action is needed for Q3.
Thank you. And then I'll just do a few clarifiers myself regarding some questions about inputting CCTR, or we wanted to really clarify that for PLIS is only for those enrolled in CSPP. And then I believe we also received a question regarding the tools and for the staff needing to sign or requirement to sign. There is no requirement to sign either the family language instrument or the family language and interest interview. In the first webinar in the management bulletin, we do offer a flexibility that these questions can be added to your previous intake forms or forms that you already have developed. As some have asked if they could add like a space to put the date that it was provided, but no signature is required. We did just offer that flexibility with regards to adding a line for the date. And let's see, I think this next question is for Josie. I report 801A monthly, so it won't match the PLIS quarterly report.
Yes, so while the 801A is reported monthly and the PLIS is quarterly, we are doing work on our side to compile that data so we can compare the numbers for the 801A in a quarter method versus the PLIS, which is also quarterly. So don't worry, we won't be comparing different types of data. We'll be comparing your numbers for the 801A CSPP quarterly numbers and the PLIS quarterly report.
Thank you. This one is for Carly. Some families have reported English on all the questions pertaining to Instrument B, although they were identified as DLL from Instrument A. Will that be an issue? All the language questions in PLIS are reported from Instrument B, and many families have reported English for all language questions asked in PLIS.
That's a great question. This should not be a problem. So, it sounds like from Instrument A, that the family reported them to be a dual language learner, but the interview is mostly about preference and most used language. So if English is the most used language, then that's totally fine.
Thank you, Carly. I will now call on Yashima Daniels to help answer this next question. Do we have to report dual language learners in CPARIS once we report enrollment to match what it is reported in PLIS?
Hi. No, at this time, contractors do not have to report the children as dual language learners in CPARES to match what is in PLIS, they should report in the adjustment factor, which gives them the highest adjustment or reimbursement.
Thank you so much, Ashima. So I will now go through the Q&A and see which questions we will be taking live. Let me just see which ones are next. Let's see which question. Let's see. And thank you so much for those of you that are adding your questions to the Q&A. Really appreciate it.
Patricia, I'm seeing a question from Chase that
Yes,
I think I can answer.
Yeah.
Sorry. So the question is language program types. Is there a more extensive resource available for determining what type of program we are? And Patricia, feel free to clarify if I misspeak. But I don't believe that there is. This is kind of up to your discretion when reviewing the definitions of those program types to determine which of those types matches your classroom and your program best. There is no like certification that you would need in order to use one of those program types.
Yeah, and I can add on to that. I know in the documents that are now posted live on the PLIS landing page, in one of the documents in the data reporting instructions, we do offer some more insight on these program types. However, if you have a more nuanced question or would like additional clarification or confirmation, please feel free to reach out to that inbox, and we'll work together to ensure that you are making the proper identification there. Thank you. So let's see, any other questions? I believe, okay, Virginia, if you would like to answer this question live. It says school ends in 10 days and our parents have not completed the 4-question interview, even though we emailed it to them. What is our next step?
Okay, sorry. Needed to get off mute. The button was a little sticky. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Really the interview is meant to be a conversation, not a form. So this is really a conversation we would recommend you have with your families. I think in our management bulletin, we said that, a best practice is sitting down. I think in the first webinar, Fresno talked about how they sit down for about 15 minutes between the teacher and the parents of the child and have a conversation. And they find it so valuable that they've chosen to do it for everyone, even though it's only required for dual language learners. We do want to highlight that if scheduling that sit down type of conversation isn't really viable, the questions in the interview can be asked verbally, so for example, at drop-off, pickup, and then you can record their answers later. Unless the family is, let's say the family speaks Arabic, but nobody at your center speaks Arabic, and we do have a translation of the questions in Arabic. Unless you're dealing with that kind of situation, we'd really, really strongly recommend for this to be a conversation and not a form handed to the family, because we really, part of the intention of this change is that the teacher is developing that really strong relationship with the family, and it's a tool to help them better serve the child. And we think that can best come out by some of those conversations rather than a form that's emailed.
Thank you, Virginia. And I think this next question is for Josie. It states, we added the children into the PLIS, but it's being stated reported. Is there an actual report that we turn in, or do you mean the child records?
Yes, so in this situation, we call it the PLIS report. But the PLIS report is really just all the children that you've inputted. So if you have either manually or electronically reported all your children in PLIS, and when you log in, you see them under child records, then that will count as your PLIS report. There's no other report you need to fill out as long as you have reported and uploaded all those child records into the PLIS.
Thank you. And this next question is for Carly. The languages on the PLIS instructions have more languages than the 801A. Since the most used language is the child's primary language on the 801A report, will the languages on the 801A be updated to match the list on the PLIS instructions?
Thank you. Yep, this is a very great question. And I think that our end goal is to align the systems. But while we do that, there may be times where the language is not available in the 801A, but it is available in the PLIS report. So if you could please, like in the 801A, use the response for like other language, and then in the PLIS report the language code that is available. This is our guidance for reporting in both of these reports, but we are very much hoping to align the languages with what's available in PLIS. And we will let you know if that is accomplished.
Thank you. And this next question is also for you, Carly. When inputting siblings separately, an error occurs with regards to the family identification number. What should we put since they would share the same identification number?
I think that this question was asked by an anonymous attendee, but if you could please submit this to the PLIS inbox. Again, it's plis@cde.ca.gov with a screenshot of the error that you're receiving. We can look into this because you shouldn't be receiving an error if they have the same FICN, as long as they have different CICNs, which is the child identification case number. So they should be allowed to have the same FICN. They must have different CICNs.
Thank you, Carly. Just checking to see which questions next. I see this one. I think it's also yours, Carly. Why do we need to enter languages of staff for every child if that information is the same for the whole class?
Yeah, so this is a great question too. And unfortunately, because of the way that the PLIS itself was constructed, there is no easy way to report the same information, for the same classroom, basically. And I think that the difficulty of this is that for the first, your initial report that you're submitting, there is a manual burden of having to report this all for this, if you have the same information for the classroom. But I guess the hopeful bright side is that after you've successfully inputted all of your information for the initial required report, for following reporting period, you can just download the report that you've submitted, say for Q3, and re-upload that if most of your information is staying consistent. So for example, like if in Q3 you're reporting 50 children, and in Q4 all of those 50 children are still enrolled in your program, you can just download your report from Q3 and re-upload it for Q4. So that way you're not having to re-input all of that information all over again. And then we always advise, if you say you have the 50 children from Q3, but you've also enrolled, say 5 children during Q4, to download your Q3 and re-upload it for Q4 so that all 50 children are there, and then to manually input the children that are newly enrolled, so that you can have all 55 children. If you were to manually input the 5 children first and then try to upload what you've done reported in Q3, it will overwrite anything that you've manually inputted. So to keep in mind, if you're going to take that method of reporting, to always report or submit your electronic file first and then manually input those children to ensure that all of the children are retained in the report.
Thank you, Carly. And then I'll just do some quick, like a quick little management bulletin overview on the guidance with regards, because there was a question regarding when completing attachment A and attachment B. So attachment A would be the family language instrument, which should be completed no later than upon enrollment for those children enrolled in CSPP. And for those that are dually enrolled, their EL designation should be obtained no later than the first day of attendance. The family language and interest interview should be completed no later than 30 calendar days after the child was determined to be a dual language learner using the family language instrument. And in the event that the teacher cannot complete the family language and interest interview, cannot conduct the family language and interest interview with the families, there could be other designated staff that does this. And in the event that the teacher is not the one conducting the interview, the designated staff should share the information from the interview with the teacher to best support that child. You can definitely refer to the Management Bulletin 2303 and PLIS Frequently Asked Questions document that is on the PLIS landing page. We have best practices for the family language instrument and the family language and interest interview. So hope that helps with that. Let's see now, next question. Oh, Carly, when is Q4 due again?
So Q4 will be due on July 20th. The report or the submission period will open on July 1st. So from July 1st through July 20th is when the report can be submitted. Again, the reporting period for Q4 will be due or will be open until September 30th, but any time after July 20th, you'll be considered late. So July 20th.
Thank you, Carly. And then with regards to the family language instrument and family language and interest interview, there does need to be, these documents do need to go into the student data file. So I hope that answers the questions with regards to what supportive documentation must be kept, if any. And there's also, with regards to teacher, if the route of teacher designation is taken, there's also more information on that in the frequently asked questions document regarding the additional documentation that should be kept. I'm sorry, the student data file. Thank you. Sorry, family data file. Sorry. Okay, looking for more questions. Let's see. Going through the Q&A to see if there's any questions that we would like to take live. Let's see.
Patricia, I think there was one question that just, I don't know, it just disappeared, but it was something like, if the, you know, if it's more of a conversation, do we have to save anything in our files? And the answer is yes, you do need to save the answers to the questions in your files. So let's say, you know, let's say you're having an interview. Let's say you're sitting down and you're having a conversation and you have the questions in front of you. You're essentially taking notes about what they say on that document. So let's say in 6 months you want to remind yourself what the parent said, you can go back and find that. So similarly, that essentially the goal is that, you know, if you're not, you know, sitting down in a sort of session where you're having this conversation, you're asking the questions sort of ad hoc so that you can get the answers, because for whatever reason the schedules don't align. You will need to go and write down, you know, what they tell you on that document or on the page, whether it's on the exact form we gave you or some other way that you want to track it. But essentially the answers to each of those questions need to be captured, not necessarily verbatim, right? Because you want to be having a conversation, and if you write down every word the family says, then maybe that's you know, contrary to the main point, but you definitely want to get the main gist of what they're saying captured on the document and filing it in the family data file.
Thank you, Virginia. This next question is for Carly. Our school year ends in June and begins in August. When do I report them?
So the report is still due on July 1st. If there's a conflict with being able to do so, can you please send an email to the PLIS inbox so that we can further discuss this with you? Again, it's the plis@cde.ca.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe this next one is also yours. If the child is returning for the 2023-24 program year, do we need to do another interview?
No, this is only at initial enrollment. Or is that correct, Virginia?
Yeah, the requirement is that you do the instrument at enrollment and do the interview at enrollment. Of course, enrollment is different from recertification. So just wanting to flag that. So if you are enrolling, that needs to happen. Now that's all to say that, you know, if you are aware of something that's been a major change in the child's life as part of serving the educational needs of that child, it's probably good to be aware of, but there's no formal requirement that the family language instrument or interview be reconducted.
Thank you. This next question is for Josie. It says, our agency will be implementing a new database system in July 2023, and the system will give all of our clients new ID numbers for families and children. Will this be a problem when submitting future PLIS reports?
Yes, so for this, we probably need to look into it in more detail. If you could, sorry, I can't see who asked that question. If you could email the PLIS inbox at plis@cde.ca.gov with exactly when this change will happen and more details on those new ID numbers, then we'll be able to help you more. Yeah, so just send that information over to the inbox.
And Virginia, I wonder if I can call on you again for these two similar questions. One being with 24-month eligibility, do we ask parents to do instrument yearly? And the next, do we provide the instrument at recertification as well?
So as I just mentioned, the instrument is at enrollment. So recertification is not the same thing as enrollment. So just wanting to clarify that. And it sounds like given the number of questions that we've gotten in this chat, I think probably an FAQ on this will be helpful. So we'll take a look at what we can draft to have. I know everyone loves to have something in writing that they can point to. So just wanting to say we hear you and thank you for those questions.
Thank you for that. Carly, this next one is for you. Under the same agency, two different sites, different locations, then report separately. I think just seeking confirmation.
Yep, so if this is referring to a child that's being served at two different sites in different locations, please just report the site that the child is being served in for the majority of the quarter. And then if this is about how to report different sites, this does not need to be reported in a separate report. You can just submit it in the same report. So there would be no, you can submit it in the same PLIS report. If your agency utilizes sub-agencies for the CMIS and you typically report separate 801A reports for each sub-agency, then you can still do that same process in the PLIS report. There is the same sub-agency feature in the PLIS system, so you can utilize that function.
Thank you for that. And for this next question, do you have suggestions on how to deliver if the teacher does not speak the language of the family? This is really difficult task to add to our teachers. I will call on Valentina to answer this and share more.
Hello, everyone. So to address this, I did want to let everyone know that on June 13th, we are going to be having a supporting dual language learner webinar. where we will have 2 guest speakers that are coming from the field, specifically talking about classroom strategies and family engagement strategies for dual language learners. And we will also have a panelist of 4 educators as well that will specifically be talking about this concern. So if you could please go ahead and register. Well, actually, there's no registration, but if you could please attend that, it will go ahead and address that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Just going to see what other questions we can take live here. I see this one from that Virginia would like to answer live. There should be an incentive or increase adjustment factor provided to the program per child that this information is submitted for.
So just want to remind everyone that there is an adjustment factor for dual language learners. Now, if the child is 3, we've gotten questions about whether they have to claim the dual language learner adjustment factor or they can claim the 3-year-old adjustment factor instead, because the 3-year-old one is higher and they can only claim 1. In that case, the 3-year-old would get, a 3-year-old that's a dual language learner would get the same amount as a 3-year-old who isn't a dual language learner. But for 4-year-olds, you would get additional money for them being a dual language learner. And I will also point out that the Superintendent of Public Instruction is supporting AB 555, which would change the rules so that you could claim both a 3-year-old adjustment factor and a dual language learner adjustment factor. So I'll share the language of that bill, but it's not the law yet. It has to pass the Assembly and then the Senate, and then the governor has to sign it. So we're very hopeful, and if you all want to raise your voices to advocate for it, that will help, but it won't be the law until it's gone through that whole process.
Thank you, Virginia. I see this question that I can take. If they don't do attachment A, what answer do we put when we are entering them in the PLIS system for attachment A and B? Remember, attachment A, the family language instrument, should be completed no later than upon enrollment. If you would like some additional support in completing this requirement, the management bulletin frequently asked questions does have some best practices to support with that. And also just some best practices to support when conducting the family language and interest interview, because as you mentioned, and as Carly briefly touched on this, those questions from the interview do supplement what is inputted into the PLIS. I know Virginia also touched on this, that, if you're unable to conduct the interview with them in person or Skype over the phone, you could do it in the informal setting as well. So hope that helps. I see this next question. I think it's for Carly. If I'm understanding this right, you want the enrollment specialist and the teachers to do the interview. And what if one says DLL and one says no DLL? What do we do in that case?
So I'm not sure.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Virginia.
Can I just join in? So essentially, the interview is not determining whether the child is a DLL or not. The instrument is, and I know it's confusing because they both start with I, and I mix them up in my head all the time. But the instrument is that form that's done upon enrollment, or no later than enrollment, ideally when the child is first coming to you and you're putting them on your waiting list, because they can be prioritized for being a dual language learner. But essentially, that is what is determining that the child is a dual language learner, not the interview. It's not the designation of the teacher, unless very specific circumstance, which I'll highlight in a second. But essentially, the family's answers are what determine whether they're a dual language learner. The only exception to this is if the only exception of where the family's answers on the instrument don't correspond with their designation is if the family has answered English to all of the questions, and then within 30 days, let's say the teacher sees that child having a full-blown conversation with another child in a language other than English, and they clearly speak that language. They heard them. Maybe that teacher is bilingual and happens to know that, they were speaking Spanish or Arabic or whatever. And so they can see, well, it really looks like there's a language other than English here. And so I think some of those answers on the instrument were maybe not fully representative. And so at that point, they need to go back to the family and say, share their observations, share what they saw, and give the family the opportunity to revise their answers. If the family at that point is still concerned about, changing their answers for whatever reason, the teacher at that point can make a designation that, I saw the child speaking another language, and they can designate them as a dual language learner. And that would be the only situation where the teacher would be essentially using their judgment to determine that the child is a dual language learner. And in that case, the teacher's sort of justification and all of that needs to be saved in the family data file along with the other documentation.
Thank you so much, Virginia. Just checking the Q&A, and it seems that we have no open questions. So I hope that we were able to answer all of your questions. And again, if you have any specific nuanced questions or any additional questions, please send them over to the PLIS inbox, which is plis@cde.ca.gov. And I will now hand things back over to Carly.
Thanks, Patricia. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we want to once again thank everyone for all of your time today. As a reminder, this is a part 2 of a 3-part series for dual language learner students. On this slide, we have included information for our upcoming webinar to close out this series. So if you could please join us for our part 3 of our dual language learner support webinar series on June 13th, 2023 from 3 to 4:30 p.m. This webinar will cover supporting dual language learners in California state preschool programs. Please make sure you and others you want to attend are signed up for our email distribution list. We just put more information on this in the chat. So we want to once again share that we are working on a dual language learner support webpage, and more information on this will be forthcoming. We are hoping to email that link out to our distribution list when it is available. We will post today's recording and PowerPoint on this webpage. There will also be additional resource slides added at the end of this PowerPoint, which include important links. These links have been shared throughout this presentation in the chat, but we wanted them to be handy for you all in the posting of this presentation. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any lingering questions that we were not able to get to ahead of Q3 reporting, please do not hesitate to reach out to the PLIS email inbox. Again, plis@cde.ca.gov, and we will be happy to support you there. We appreciate all that you do for CSPP and want to especially thank you for taking the time today to learn more about data reporting, DLLs, and CSPP. Thank you, everyone.